Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, I want to indicate, as my colleagues have on this side of the House, that it's my intention to support this bill. However, I am critical that in providing 5 days unpaid family and domestic violence leave, that the bill does not go far enough. I am very conscious, Deputy Speaker, as I speak on this bill, the roughly 15 minutes allocated to me to do so, that across the country, in homes in each and every one of our electorates, there's no geographical barrier to the experience of family and domestic violence. Across households, regardless of income, regardless of cultural or ethnic background or religion, this scourge in our society is affecting women and children right now as I'm on my feet speaking. And there must be efforts by this government, this parliament and state and federal authorities as well to do all that we can to address what is a crisis in our community. The impacts directly and immediately on people who are facing violence, whether it's physical, sexual, emotional violence, are profound. People struggle to simply manage and get by, to protect each other, and particularly mothers looking to protect their children. And the day-to-day reality is terrifying for them. And more long-term, we know from many, many studies the terrible impact that this has not only on the lives of those who are in the middle of such a crisis, on their emotional and physical well-being well into the years beyond escaping from that home, but also the impacts on our communities, our society and our economy are real and serious and require such attention by all governments. It is sadly the reality, as we know from our watch, that the statistics are really terrifying. 1 woman a week is murdered in this country as a result of family and domestic violence. Each day, like many of my colleagues, as I open my Facebook feed and we see Facebook groups that follow and report on this, every week we're seeing another death of a woman through family and domestic violence, and too often also children. 1 in 3 women have experienced physical violence by the age of 15. 1 in 3. 1 in 5 have experienced sexual violence. 1 in 6 physical or sexual violence by a current or former partner, and 1 in 4 emotional abuse by a current or former partner. We have to ask as a society what it is that is contributing to this situation and deal seriously with the underlying structural issues around the way women are viewed and treated in our society, to ensure that we are raising young people, children, men and boys, girls as well, to have respect for each other and to understand that each and every single person has the human right to dignity, safety, and to see their lives fulfilled in not just our society but all societies. It should be a universal thing across the world. And until we get to addressing those very fundamental issues, we will continually face this crisis. And so it is important that we do have policies and procedures in place, things like the bill before us, to assist and protect people in the immediacy of these circumstances. But I would just put out a call, as my colleague, the member for Canberra, just did as we go into the Christmas season. Each and every day we need to be thinking about how we build respect for each other. And if we respect each other and respect our right to safety, our right to be full people able to participate in our society, to go out into our communities, to reach our potential, then we start to challenge the views that obviously feed some people's view that they have a right to impinge physically, sexually or emotionally on the well-being of another human being. And when that is a person you are supposed to love, you are supposed to be supporting, then you really need to ask, what is it that is driving that level of disrespect in our society? And I think we should all be speaking about that constantly, and I endorse many of my colleagues across both sides of the chamber who challenge that view. Importantly, in terms of this bill, we know that the ABS tells us that 2 out of every 3 women in the workforce, women who experience domestic violence are in the workforce. And so one of the things that we have to address is how the workplace responds to women who are experiencing family and domestic violence. It's an example. In 2016, the KPMG did an exercise estimating the cost of violence against women and their children on production and on the business sector. And whilst I don't argue that economic costs are the only factor, I think it is important to recognise that they found from their study that $1.9 billion in the year of that study, 2015-16, was the cost of family and domestic violence. So it is important, and there have been many campaigns prosecuted, in particular by the trade union movement, and I acknowledge many of the fabulous people who've been involved in that campaign, that we need to address how do we support women in the workplace when they're dealing with these matters. And so this bill, the Fair Work Amendment Family and Domestic Violence Leave Bill, follows a decision that was made by the Fair Work Commission in March this year to insert a clause into modern awards that would provide 5 days unpaid family and domestic violence leave. That decision of the Fair Work Commission came into effect from the 1st of August this year, and that would cover more than 2 million Australians who are award-reliant employees, giving them that entitlement. The bill before us amends the National Employment Standards to provide all employees with an entitlement to this 5 days unpaid leave if they experience family and domestic violence. And the bill before us pretty closely reflects the model clause. That is, it's 5 days unpaid entitlement. It applies to all employees. Importantly, Deputy Speaker, including casuals. I think that is very important. It's available in full at the commencement of each 12-month period, rather than accruing progressively, and it will not accumulate from year to year, but it will be available in full to part-time and casual employees. That is, it's not pro rata as many entitlements are, and I think that is very, very important, and it is a step in the right direction. Labor has a policy and a commitment that we should have 10 days paid family and domestic violence leave. I think that is the appropriate standard. That's why I'm a little critical of the bill before us, that I don't think it goes far enough, but I do acknowledge it is a step in the right direction. One of the reasons this is so important is that when a woman makes a decision to leave a violent relationship, often having children that have to be taken as well, then there are a whole range of implications around that decision that have to be dealt with, and in particular things like medical appointments, legal appointments, as the member for Canberra said, the whole thing about arranging accommodation, and often those particular types of appointments can only be made during what are working hours. And so it is important to enable a woman in that really difficult and most often, sadly, most dangerous time when they decide to leave, that they have the entitlement to leave that will enable them to do those sorts of appointments. In the time that's left to me, Deputy Speaker, I just want to talk about some of the local organisations in my own area, and I'm sure they're reflected in constituencies across the country, who work in this space, and my great respect and admiration for the work that they do. The Illawarra Committee Against Domestic Violence has produced a very important document that goes through the resources available and support. The Women's Health Centre works in this space. In particular, I want to acknowledge each year the Reclaim the Night Illawarra team that raise awareness in our community of the scourge of family and domestic violence and the resources that are available. Whenever I can, I make sure that I'm able to go along and support them on those occasions. In fact, about 2 years ago, they collected over 12,000 signatures calling for action on family and domestic violence, which I was pleased to table in this parliament. So the organisers this year, Janine McAvoy from Relationships Australia and Lynelle Samways from the Wollongong Women's Information Service, again rallied the local community on this very important issue. And it is, I think, a space that's not easy to work in. And I think we certainly should pay respect to the very many, both workers and volunteers in organisations in our communities who are working in this space. And I just want to, with your indulgence, Deputy Speaker, identify those locally. There's White Ribbon Australia, the Illawarra Communities Against Domestic Violence, the Women's Health Centre, the Wollongong Women's Information Service, the Supported Accommodation and Homelessness Services, Wollongong Homeless Hub, Wollongong Housing Trust, Southern Youth and Family Services, Headspace Illawarra, Wollongong Youth Services, the Violence, Abuse and Neglect Crisis Service, the Older Women's Network, Community Movers, the Illawarra Legal Centre, Illawarra Women's Domestic Violence Court Advisory Service, South Coast Children's Family Centre, Brighter Futures Care South, Housing New South Wales, the local police, who I meet with regularly and get updates on the issues they're facing, and often domestic violence is right up there with all the local issues. Our local hospitals, who are sadly often the first place where we see people suffering from this situation, and local charities who are out there day in, day out. Catholic Care, Baptist Care, Anglicare, St Vincent de Paul, Salvation Army, Bernardo's, providing emergency relief and other services. And I think part of the reason I wanted to pay respect to all of those organisations and the work that they do is I think that in listing them we can see the extent of the challenge in our communities. Some of them are providing counselling services, medical services, housing support, food and emergency relief services, and they're across youth services, women's services, health services and, as I said, police. And so it is an extensive impact on our community that we see from family and domestic violence. I was very pleased last week that the Leader of the Opposition and the Deputy Leader of the Opposition, along with our Shadow Minister for Preventing Family Violence, announced that Labor would refund, as in fund a program that the government had not committed to funding on, that is the Keeping Women Safe in Their Homes program. This is a program that provides funding so that instead of having to flee the home, the woman and the children are able to stay in the home, and it's funding that does things like assessments and safety planning on the home safety upgrades, new locks, alarms, cameras and so forth, and supporting women in enforcing apprehended violence orders. This was an important initiative and an important program, and I'm very pleased that Labor has announced that we will continue the funding for that program. So I just would finally say, Deputy Speaker, that this is a bill in the right direction. It is good to provide this entitlement to workers, permanent, casual and part-time, to enable women to have that support when they are fleeing family and domestic violence. But I would hope that we very soon see a government in this place that will extend that to 10 days and make that paid family and domestic violence leave. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.